In the dark, appeared like a kangaroo. So, good morning for this very early coffee break. We are happy today to have Cassandra Goodman in the show. Welcome, Cassandra.
Thanks, Jim. Happy to be here.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's the afternoon, early evening here in Melbourne, Australia. So I'm drinking my peppermint tea while you drink your strong coffee.
Yeah. It's early here. It's like completely dark. So, but people are waking up. And today we will talk about your new book. We will talk about your new book, Being True, how to be yourself at work. What is it all about?
Look forward to it.
Yeah. So what is your book like? Mainly, what is it about? Being true.
Okay.
What is
What
that
is it
about?
about? Okay. So this is my book, Being True, How to Be Yourself at Work. This is my second book. My first book was called Self-Fidelity, which is really about this idea of really restoring faith in who we really are at our core. I've spent 30 years working for organizations big and small, both here in Australia, and we talked earlier, Jim, I've spent time working in Brussels in Europe.
Yeah.
And I think over those many years of working, what I realized was that so many leaders um, felt somewhat diminished by the workplace, in some way felt that who they really were at their core was in some way maybe inconvenient, inadequate, not fully welcomed at work. And so we get really good at kind of pretending to be something that we're not. We get really good at fitting in. We get really good at grinning and bearing it or towing the party line. And all of this comes at a big cost. So really what I've been focused on the last 5 years is supporting leaders to really honor who they authentically are at work in a way that's skillful, that's brave, that's kind, that's inclusive. Because I really believe that by being true to our true nature as humans, that we serve the greatest good. And that's what the book's about. The book's quite short. You can see it's quite short and practical. It has 5 principles and 5 practices that help us to really be true to our true nature at work.
Yeah. Okay. We will go in detail through all these 5 pillars. Now, you worked for General Electric. You were like really into data. You were like you have like a past just as me, like as a master black belt, Six Sigma. Like
Yeah.
that's like the most, I think, one of the most rational professions you can have. How did you make the switch from let's say the left side brain to the right side brain?
From spreadsheets to being true to ourselves. I joined General Electric in 2000 here in Australia, where lean at the time wasn't lean Six Sigma, it was pure Six Sigma. It was just taking off, and so I really love that idea of custom innovation and using database decision making things better. So I climbed the ranks of Lean Six Sigma. So I became a black belt, then a master black belt in Lean Six Sigma, and then I really wanted to kind of move to that next level of quality leader, which was responsible for the whole continuous improvement strategy. And that's what took me from Australia over to Brussels when I applied for the quality leader role across Europe, Middle East, and Africa for GE Security. So yes, I spent many, many years figuring out the inputs and the outputs, understanding that hidden transfer function, about what creates variation in output. And I think it was really interesting for me to work with pure Six Sigma and then introduce Lean, which we know is a little bit more inclusive. And I think a little bit more revealing of what's really going on in the human factor side of things, because we know there's only so much you can capture in a spreadsheet. There's all these lurking variables that are often the human factors that you can't really capture in your regression analysis. And so, I think my career went from pure Six Sigma to Lean Six Sigma to more lean design thinking was added to my toolkit. And then I really realized that to transform customer experiences and to transform customer outcomes, we had to transform employee experiences and employee outcomes. So my career went from customer experience innovation to employee experience innovation. And I had a great role of global director of employee experience, where I worked for a healthcare company and was able to activate the purpose of longer, healthier, happier lives for 86,000 people around the world, which is a fabulous opportunity. And then, a bit like the lurking variables of the people side, I realized, well, wait a minute, to transform employee experiences, we need to transform the way leaders are thinking. And so really the focus now is transforming the inner experiences leaders have to transform employee experiences and transform customer experience and transform commercial outcomes. So that's a long story of how I went from regression analysis, Lean Six Sigma, through to a very different approach that's, I think, really gets to the heart of the matter of why do we do what we do as leaders, and how do those choices and actions and ways of thinking create ripple effects right through employee, customer, commercial outcomes.
Yeah. So, but you focus on leaders. You are not really focusing like on just every employee. You say like, okay, the responsibility is mainly for the leaders to be like truly themselves, and that will lead to the employees being themselves. It's like that.
Well, I really am inclusive in my work. So my books are very much for anyone. So I firstly, to define a leader, I believe we are all leaders. I believe a leader is anyone who's really looking to grow themselves and others. And we all have to lead ourselves, right? My methodology recognizes that we all have many parts. So there's not just one Jim, there's a core Jim, but then there's all these parts of Jim. And part of our job as leaders is to lead the different parts of ourselves while staying connected to our core. So in that respect, we're all leaders of ourselves. And I think that anyone who's looking to grow and make a difference is a leader. So I really have a very inclusive definition of leaders. Having said that, having worked in many workplaces as you have, Jim, you know what it's like. Unless the leaders are modeling authentic practices, unless leaders are really being imperfect, authentic, bringing their whole selves to work, then no one else is going to do it. And it doesn't matter how many times leaders say it's okay to bring your whole selves to work. Unless they're doing it, no one's going to do it. And I see a lot of organizations kind of ticking the box of authenticity, like, oh, we have flexible dress policies. You can wear your jeans, or, we've got a ping pong table, or, you can work flexible hours. But when I talk about the real tricky work of authentic leadership, it goes much, much deeper than that.
Yeah. What's your estimate of the impact of the leader, like leadership, like leading by example? What for you? I have like a number in my head. What's your number? The impact of leading by example on the result. What do you think?
Oh, okay. Let's think. I've never thought of that. So the impact of leading by example on results, like in terms of all the factors that lead to
Yeah,
results.
just in the percent. Yeah, the percentage, like how much do they impact the end result? You should, as a Six Sigma black belt, you should have kind of an estimation of that impact.
Contribution factor, yeah. So look, I think it permeates every variable. I think it accounts for at least 50%.
Yeah.
More. It depends on the workplace. I would say it depends on the leader and how extreme their anti-authentic behaviors are. If it's subtle, but overall, more than 50%. I think, particularly in terms of when you look at organizations that say, we have these values, we stand for these things. In the case of values activation, whether these words that are on our website really mean anything, it's, I'd say 90% plus are leaders modeling this, or, you may as well not have those values. So it's a significant contributor. It's a critical X, the vital few. Vital few X's to the output of performance. What's your percentage, Jim?
Yeah, my percentage is 70%, 70.
Good.
Yeah, for the impact of leadership, the impact of leading by example. Now, when you lead by example, and the leaders are like truly themselves, what are the benefits for like the organization? Because that is why, yeah, why we should promote it. When people see the benefits, and when the benefits are bigger than than the fear, or than the burden to do it, then people start doing that. So what are the benefits?
So many benefits. So I think the first benefit is for ourselves, vitality and well-being. We know that when what psychologists would call surface acting, where we pretend there's nothing to see here, when our inner experience doesn't align with the face we're putting out, that surface acting comes at a huge cost. It's corrosive to our well-being. We know it's a factor that leads to burnout and other quite significant conditions. So there's an obvious uplift in terms of our vitality and our well-being. There's uplift in terms of productivity. When there's trust, we know there's a massive uplift in productivity. Also from a retention perspective, which can have such a big impact on productivity. We know from the latest McKinsey research that one of the big reasons people leave is that they don't feel like they belong. They don't feel like they're seen and valued. And we know that in order to feel like we belong, we've got to be able to show up in a way that's authentic and imperfect. The work of Dr. Brené Brown shows us that this sense of authenticity, being true to ourselves, is critical to feeling like we belong. So there's that whole retention side of things. The innovation side of things, I think when we're true to ourselves, we're able to be playful, we're able to be innovative, we activate our creativity. So there's that whole realm of creativity and innovation. I think the other thing to be aware is that there's so many hidden costs. So I think we're really good at, going through the motions, fitting in, doing all the things that we think we need to do. We're really good at that, but we're really bad at really understanding the cost, the hidden cost of that. That is kind of this second job that we have of pretending, of fitting in, of really suppressing maybe parts of ourselves that feel afraid or unsure. That comes at a big cost, not just to our well-being, but to our relationships. So I think as well as this big upside, there's also a really big downside that a lot of the leaders I work with aren't quite clear on.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think, Jim? What for you, like when you think about being true to yourself, what are some of the benefits for you?
Yeah, I made a model of that. Like when I was a plant manager, like I made like kind of a summary on one paper. Like I wanted to show the different stages, and the first stage is to engage people, and that starts it's like written. It starts with authentic leaders, and it starts with with trust, and then you start engaging the people, and then you give them like autonomy, and then. You focus on their passion and talent, and then you see that the connection is growing, and then you come in the phase of kind of being vulnerable and like really creating a heart connection. That's the phase. And for sure, when you start like focusing on what people themselves want to be like the self-realization of people, if you start focusing on like what people themselves like to become, and then you really see like a big jump in the
Mm,
yeah, the first step is like authentic leadership. So it's in my for the lean model, and vulnerability and connection is there like really
yeah,
really important. And I don't think like you can really create like a connection if people feel that there's like kind of a filter in between.
yeah. You can't. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And a lot of the leaders I work with, they're quite afraid of that real connection, right? Because we talked about a bit of your story and your experience of having to make people redundant, and there's a heartbreak in that. And so I
Yeah.
think that the reality is that the world of work can be a heartbreaking place, right? And so often the times it's like, let me just shield my heart because I'm not sure if I can take the heartbreak of it all. So a lot of what I do is really bolstering leaders and building their own capability to take care of themselves when things don't go well, and to be able to care and kind of heal through that heartbreak. Because the reality, the alternative, as you say, Jim, is to keep everyone at a distance, put the mask on, and therefore have no chance of real connection and real trust. And it's a hard thing. When I was maybe 20 years ago in my career, my boss pulled me aside. He said, Cassie, the problem with you is that you care too much. If you ever want to make it to a global executive role, you've got to learn how to care less. That's what he
Mhm.
said to me. I'm really glad. I was like, thanks for the advice, mate, but I'm going to keep on caring. And I was really proud to make it to that global executive position, still being caring and open-hearted, but it did come at a cost. There were certainly moments of heartbreak in that, because you're operating a system that is sometimes quite dehumanizing. Any organizational system, not just that organization, any workplace, it's built on the machine paradigm, right? That humans are these cogs that can be switched out for other cogs.
Yeah, no, but I don't believe you can care too much. Like when I was a plant manager, also sometimes the employees came to me and they told me like, yeah, you don't have to do that much for us. Like, don't risk yourself for us. Because, but when you want to make people really feel safe, then sometimes you have to fight for them. That
Yeah,
that's like protection.
courage.
And like I got energy the moment that I saw these people like um blossom to the best version of themselves. Like I had like blue collars later on who got like job proposals for engineers. So that is what like gives me, and
Mhm.
see that these people go above what they thought was possible, the mac or the maximum for themselves. That for
Yeah.
me is like caring the most, is like really to believe in these people.
Yeah, and that takes courage, right? You had the courage to care deeply, and
Yeah,
you shared earlier that cost you your job at one point, right?
yeah,
That courage to care deeply enough to do what was right for those you were serving as a leader. Like, that's, I hope we see more leaders like you who have that courage to care, who've done that inner work, who can dig deep enough to know that they are able to do the right thing even when it's hard. And I mean, of course, there's a whole context of financial situations. Not everyone can afford to put themselves in that position where their job's on the line, but um, I hope more and more leaders are able to find the courage to care. Yeah.
yeah. But when you think abundant, why shouldn't you risk it? Yeah, if tomorrow they fire you and you go, there's like enough yeah, vacancies to work.
Yeah, well, yeah, in most parts of the world that's true. Like for skilled people, that's true. Yeah, I'm always conscious when I talk about these subjects, Jill, that Jim, that everyone's not, in a, let's say, a privileged position, and in some parts of the world maybe there is
Mhm.
not those opportunities or that transferability of skills. But I hope, yeah, more and more leaders find the courage to care, even when it's hard and even when there's personal risk, because there's
Yeah.
always personal risk, right?
Yeah, no, but that is also one of the reasons why I really like did everything for these people, because I knew that me as an engineer with my background, that I that it would be like a lot easier for me to find another job than people
Yeah.
who are just like limited in the jobs that they were learned to do. But
Right.
yeah, for me it's like a little bit sad that you always have to show the financial benefits of what you're doing to convince people and to convince top management to keep doing.
Yeah, I wrote the business case for self-fidelity. So self-fidelity, the practice of being true to our true nature. I have written and published the business case for self-fidelity, which I from time to time share and remind people of all these benefits. And it is a bit sad, but I'm really trying hard to meet the business world where it's at. And sometimes you've got to talk that language. But
Yeah.
I have one of these mantras. My mantra is, I choose to co-create with the curious, not convince the closed-minded.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I spent decades in businesses trying to convince the closed-minded, and I can do it. We can both do it. We're compelling people. We know how to convince, but I'd much rather co-create with the curious. I think that's a better use of my energy. So I am trying to be discerning, and when I do encounter people that are closed-minded and really not maybe fall at that first stumbling block, that there's lots of different parts of ourselves, and being true to ourselves is about understanding, well, who am I at my core? I mean, some people can't even get past that. They're not willing to open to a new understanding of self. And so then the conversation ends there. But that's okay, because there's enough leaders like you and like your community who are open to a new understanding of self, who are curious to understand themselves at a deeper level, who are curious to think about a new definition of what does it mean to be self-aware, to lead ourselves, to understand our core and our parts. There's enough people out there who are open. And my model is an evidence-based model based on 30 years of practice in a therapeutic setting. So I've also got that grounding of this is an evidence-based framework that I'm using.
Yeah. Now you say you don't only have to love what you're doing, you also have to love who you are. And there you had like the five principles. Like, let's go to these five pillars you mentioned of
Yeah,
being
the
being.
principles. Yeah. So I think what I realize is that it's not enough to just love what we're doing. There's all those sayings, love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. And I think what I realize is that it's not enough to love what you're doing unless we love, or at least like, who we're being while we do it. And so the five principles that I use to talk about my book is, number one, that belonging comes from being true to ourselves. So I really want us to start the book by drawing this really strong link that's, again, based on research, that until we have the courage to show up or authentically and imperfectly, we don't feel like we belong anywhere. So that link was important because of the link that links belonging with employee retention. The second principle is self-abandonment happens little by little, that we don't kind of betray or abandon ourselves in big sweeping decisions, that it's little by little. And I talk about the bonsai versus the oak tree, that an acorn can grow into a towering oak tree, or that same acorn can live its life as a twisted, stunted bonsai. And the only difference is the bonsai has slowly been trimmed, the branch pruning and the root constraint has happened little by little. So that self-abandonment happens in small increments is the second principle. The third one is that being yourself requires knowing yourself, and that I believe there's a fundamental flaw in the way we think about self-awareness, the assumption that there's only one self to know, when actually there's a core and many different parts. And so then principle 4 is you have a core and many different parts. There's not one self to know, that this is a model of the human consciousness that, again, is evidence-based and congruent with our experience. We've all had that experience where part of us wants something, then part of us wants something completely different. Then the fifth principle is that being true to ourselves requires playful practice. It's not enough to know, conceptually the framework. we really need to commit to an ongoing playful practice that embeds authentic leadership into the flow of our everyday.
Yeah. Yeah, as an master black belt, you are able to break down the problem. Yeah, that's what you did. I think. Yeah,
Those Six Sigma skills are still coming in handy.
yeah. I will show again like the book to the people. So Cassandra just before we started told us that that you all can get like a free copy of this book, like a digital copy of this book. So we will inform you how to get this this book. So after the coffee break, just stay for 2 more minutes that we can fix like the practical details of this. Do you have like other advices, tips for people watching, like how to be
Yeah.
truly themselves at work? Are there other things that you say like that is really important apart from the 5 things you mentioned?
Yeah, so that were the 5 principles. I mean, the practices I share in the book is there's 5 practices. One, discovering your inner team. So these inner team of parts, your inner leadership team, if you want. Understanding each of their jobs. You know, all of our parts have important jobs to do. These jobs are there to try to keep us safe. Learning how to care for our different parts. So when I think about my own self-care practices, it's not just about some of the foundations of sleep and nutrition and movement, hydration. I really think about what each of my parts need from me in order to feel cared for. So it's really a new take on self-care. And then remembering who you are is the next practice. And we spoke about this before we started, Jim, of how you've helped leaders to really understand who they are at their core. And so remembering who we are at our core is really about getting clear on our essence, who we really, really are beneath all the facades and the roles and the personality. Who's a person beneath the personality? And then harnessing that essence is the final practice. And so a lot of the high achieving leaders I coach are driven by this desire to prove, to strive, to be perfect, to compete, to win. We know that energy source is heavily polluting and it's not sustainable, but we can harness our essence as an alternative renewable energy source. So that's the last practice of really learning how to tap in to who we are at our core as this kind of renewable energy source that's have low pollution levels, so to speak.
Yeah, and when you tap into the energy of others, then like it's like kind of infinite, the potential.
That's right. Yeah, renewable, infinite, sustainable, powerful. Yeah.
And the more connections you create, like the more energy also goes in both directions. So I think it's like kind of
Yeah.
an ecosystem between
Yeah. Yeah, a sustainable energy ecosystem. I like that.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, but how easy is it to change like the culture to achieve this, like to achieve
Of an
these?
organization.
Yeah, how easy is it to change a culture in an organization? Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's really challenging, right? So I think, I love, I don't know if you've used Ken Wilber's model that talks about the individual and the collective visible and invisible factors. Like there's this 4-quadrant model that talks about the individual invisible factors, the individual visible factors, how we show up, the collective invisible, like unspoken rules, cultural norms, stories and history, and then the collective visible, which are things like stated values, behaviors, performance reviews, KPIs. So there's 4. I always, when I do this work with organizations to create the cultural shift, we'll always cover all 4 quadrants of that model. But of course, it starts with the individual invisible work inside of us the change of behaviors, to start influencing the system, and to start talking about the unspoken ground rules and the systems and structures that keep us stuck. So it needs a very holistic, systemic approach, because we're shifting a system. So of course, there's no simplistic solution to systemic change. We need to work together collectively, really, I think, around those factors to figure out how together do we nudge and shape and tweak the system to move towards a more humane system, a system that's really going to support us to honor who we authentically are, that's going to be less dehumanizing, that's going to create more collaboration, more space for honesty. So, it's a complex thing to start to shift, but it's absolutely possible.
Yeah, yeah. And when I was a plant manager, like yeah, as an engineer, yeah, I had like also like a rational kind of rational background, and like in some cases like a rational approach. What you see the moment that you become like plant manager, when you become responsible for people, um, then it's all about attitude. So that's like sometimes they say like 80% is attitude, and then the rest, then 20% are skills. But
Mm,
it's
yes.
like that. It's like the moment that you, yeah, that you work with people, then it's all about attitude. So I had to learn like also to, yeah, to fine tune
Mm,
myself in the direction of yeah, really dealing with all types of people. And another thing that is now that I see is like there's a shift ongoing, and I really, you can even measure that that shift. And the rational approach is like less and less appreciated. So you can not reach a lot of people anymore with just that rational approach. Like one, the people are
right.
used to that rational approach. They are like, oh, now it's enough. And the younger people, they are like really looking for purpose, and for like
Yeah.
really Gen Z, they are looking for heart connection and for yeah, really a bond with the people around them.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a neuroscientist that said we are feeling beings that think. We're not thinking beings that feel.
Yeah.
First and foremost, we are feeling beings. And yeah, this is the work. This is the territory of leadership, that mindset, that attitude piece that creates the connection, that builds the trust, and that it begins with a connection to oneself as a way to connect to others. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we are setting up now kind of a collection of all these types of yeah, books and videos. I will maybe show again to the people. This is the QR code. Like below, you see like the link where you can find all the free information. So if you are on your iPhone, you can scan it. And otherwise you just type the link below. So it's kind of like a community where we are in contact with people as Cassandra, who are trying, yeah, to uplift the workplace, and to take care like of both parties. It's not only about the employees, it's also about the employers. So we want to create like a win-win where yeah, kind of a lasting relation between both.
Where we all lift. Yeah, absolutely, Jim.
Yeah. Any more advice from the beautiful Australia?
I think we've covered a lot of ground. I would say, keep having the courage to care, and the courage to care for yourself, so
Yeah.
that you have the courage to care for others. And don't give up on being true to your true nature, because I honestly believe it's the only way we can serve the greatest good. And now more than ever, we need leaders who have the skills and the courage to be true to themselves. So thank you, Jim, for the conversation. I've loved it. And I look forward to sharing it with my community. And I'll share a link to a page where your fabulous community can download a copy of my book. That would be my honor to do that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I will show you like when I was in Australia. So this is what I collected. These are like all types. I don't know if you see like the difference. These are all types of sand I took from different beaches.
I love it in the test tube.
Yeah. It's like
Like, was it so which beach each one was from?
yeah. So
But
very really beautiful sand
we do
there.
have
So,
nice sand in Australia. I
yeah,
can vouch for the nice sand.
yeah. So keep protecting, yeah, like all the beauty there. So thank you very much for being here. Stay one more minute in the chat room before we leave. And but for now, we say, let's see, there might be like a question. Yeah, there are already some people waking up now. Frederik Michiels is already there. No, so thank you very much for being here, and we keep in touch.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye bye.
Bye.